You know the feeling perfectly well. It is late, the house is finally quiet, and you are lying in bed staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow is looming. In your mind, you are already scrolling through a mental list of 25 things you need to do, people you need to respond to, and fires you need to put out. You tell yourself you will wake up early, drink a glass of water, and tackle the day with perfect discipline. But when the alarm goes off, something entirely different happens. You open your eyes, reach for your phone, and instantly feel a heavy, sinking exhaustion before your feet even touch the floor. You end up reacting to whatever notification screams the loudest, and by noon, you feel entirely depleted without having accomplished the one thing that actually mattered. This looks like procrastination. It looks like laziness or a lack of willpower, but it is actually something much deeper. It is cognitive paralysis, born from a brain that is drowning in a sea of unmade decisions. And what if the exhaustion you feel every morning is not because you are doing too much, but because you are deciding too much? If you resonate with this cycle of nighttime ambition and morning defeat, you need to hear something very clearly. You are not broken. You do not lack discipline, and you are not fundamentally bad at managing your time. This behavior makes complete sense. Your brain is simply trying to protect you. It is operating in a modern world of infinite inputs, endless demands, and relentless connectivity, and it is doing the only thing it knows how to do when faced with overwhelming noise. It shuts down. It stalls. It seeks the path of least resistance just to survive the sheer volume of choices. This overwhelming desire to do everything and the subsequent failure to do anything meaningful often begins with how we view our own worth. We live with this constant humming anxiety that tells us everything is a priority. Every email must be answered immediately. Every side project must be advanced. Every social obligation must be met. Psychologically, this is tied to internalized expectations. Somewhere along the line, you learned that your value was intrinsically linked to your capacity to produce, to be helpful, to be everything to everyone. So you add more and more to your plate. Think about how you operate at work or in your relationships. You say yes to the extra meeting. You promise to look over that document. You agree to the weekend plans, even when your body is begging for rest. You write down a to-do list that would take 3 days to finish and expect yourself to do it in 8 hours. This habit of hoarding tasks once served a purpose. It kept you safe. It ensured you were perceived as reliable, agreeable, and indispensable. It was a survival strategy that protected your standing in your family or your career. But now, it is the very thing that is drowning you. When you carry that impossible list into the morning, you run straight into the wall of your own nervous system. You stand in the kitchen, the coffee brewing, and you try to decide where to begin. But your brain only has so much bandwidth. Every single choice, from what to wear to which email to open first, burns through your cognitive reserves. This is overstimulation in its purest form. You open your laptop, and the inbox becomes a slot machine of other people's emergencies. By the time you actually sit down to do the deep, meaningful work you care about, your decision-making battery is completely empty. You might look back at your childhood or early adulthood and realize this wasn't always the case. There was a time when things felt simpler, when the path was clear. But modern life demands a constant state of triage. Your brain's tendency to retreat into trivial tasks, like organizing your desk instead of writing the proposal, or scrolling social media instead of making the hard phone call, is a protective mechanism against sensory and cognitive overload. It is your mind begging for a smaller, safer world. The resistance to narrowing down your focus, to finding that one essential thing,
often comes from a quiet, unacknowledged avoidance. Choosing one priority means not choosing the others. It means letting go. In psychology, we see this as a form of loss aversion. If you only commit to one essential task for tomorrow, you have to grieve the fantasy that you are a superhuman who can do 20 things at once.
It is exactly like sitting on the couch scrolling through a streaming platform for 45 minutes. You watch the trailers, you read the summaries, but you refuse to press play. Because the moment you choose a movie, you are closing the door on the infinite potential of all the other movies. So you choose nothing. Keeping your options open feels like freedom. Keeping a massive, sprawling to-do list feels like ambition. But it is a trap. It keeps you paralyzed in the purgatory of potential, never actually moving forward. But here is the part nobody tells you. As you move through different stages of your life, your relationship with this overwhelm begins to change. The way you experience choices evolves. When you were younger, perhaps in your early 20s, being stretched thin was almost an identity. It was a badge of honor. Saying yes to everything meant you were hungry, capable, and alive. The chaos felt like momentum. You could run on fumes, adrenaline, and the sheer desire to prove yourself to the world. But as you age, the same behavior starts to feel entirely different. Saying yes to everything no longer feels like ambition. It feels like self-abandonment. The infinite choices that once represented freedom now represent a cage. Your brain, which once thrived on the dopamine of doing it all, now craves peace, boundaries, and quiet. The behavior hasn't disappeared, but the way your soul interprets it has shifted. The deep, aching desire for a simpler day isn't a sign that you are losing your edge. It is a sign that your identity is maturing. You are outgrowing the need to be everything and stepping into the desire to be just one thing, deeply and truly. This is why the act of ruthlessly prioritizing, of sitting down in the quiet of the evening for just a few minutes to decide your path for tomorrow, is not a productivity hack. It is profound emotional regulation. When you look at your chaotic, impossible list of demands and ask yourself, what is the one essential task that will make tomorrow meaningful, you are taking back the steering wheel. You are looking at the terrifying expanse of your responsibilities and drawing a single, clear line through the noise. And when you prepare your environment for that one task, when you clear the desk, set out the single notebook, close the unnecessary tabs, and place the tools you need right where you will find them, you are doing something incredibly compassionate for your future self. You are creating predictability. You are reducing the cognitive load. You are taking the heavy, exhausting burden of decision-making out of the morning when your brain is vulnerable, and moving it to the night when you have perspective. Think of this act not as a schedule, but as a blanket. It is an anchor in a stormy sea. It is like waking up and walking into a familiar room where a good friend has already laid everything out for you. The morning no longer holds the threat of the unknown. The moment you wake up, you do not have to negotiate with yourself. You do not have to fight the fatigue of choice. You just follow the gentle path you built the night before. This simple act of pre-deciding restores your emotional safety. It shrinks the world down to a manageable size. When chaos is swirling around you, knowing your exact next step is deeply grounding. It tells your nervous system, we do not have to conquer the universe today. We just have to do this one thing. You do not need to be a machine. You do not need to optimize every second of your existence. And you do not need to punish yourself for the mornings you have lost to the scroll. The exhaustion you feel is just the very human consequence of a mind trying to navigate a world that asks too much. It is okay that you have struggled to keep up. It is okay that you have tried to carry the weight of everything all at once, hoping that eventually you would become strong enough to hold it. But true peace does not come from expanding your capacity to hold more. It comes from the gentle, quiet courage to finally hold less. You are allowed to let the noise fade. You are allowed to leave the 20 tasks unfinished, to walk away from the illusion of doing it all. You are allowed to narrow your world down to one quiet, essential thing. And as you let go of the heavy armor of everything you thought you had to be, you might just find that the person left underneath is finally free to breathe.